Hey guys, I'm Nick with Martech Engineering, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install our 3-link trailing arm kit for the 2005 to 2023 Toyota Tacoma. I went ahead and pulled the bed off this truck already, save us a bit of time. So first thing we're going to do is start taking the brackets off the truck. So let's get into it. So each side of the truck is going to have 4 brackets to take off. Starting from the back, you've got your shackle hanger. This is held on by some rivets. I think there's 4 of them here. What I like to do is grind the head of the rivets off. Smack the bracket with a hammer till the bracket comes off, and then just go ahead and grind what's left of the rivet smooth. You can knock the rivets out if you like. I've found that leaving them doesn't really hurt anything, so that's what I do. That's number 1. Second is going to be your shock bracket. This is welded on, so you just go ahead and cut all the welds off, grind everything smooth. That one's good. Rivets here, same concept as that shackle bracket. 4 rivets here. Grind those down, knock the bracket off, grind the rest down. And the last one is going to be your stock leaf spring hanger bracket. That one's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass just because there's more rivets. It wraps around the frame a little extra, but it's really not all that bad. Big reason we take the fuel tank out is because right here, you're going to be doing a lot of cutting and grinding, beating on stuff with a hammer, and the last thing you want to do is start a fire or damage your fuel tank. So we're going to go ahead and get those brackets off, and we'll be on to the next thing. So now your frame should look something like this. Got all the brackets off, everything's cleaned off all the way down. This particular truck actually had the slider tying into where our trailing arm brackets are going to go, so we have to cut that out. If you don't have sliders, you obviously won't have this issue. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the frame plate on the car. We're going to mark everywhere the frame plate needs to be welded. We're going to take the frame plate back off. Take a sanding disc or a wire wheel, clean up every surface that we're going to be welding against. Then we can final fit our frame plate on here, clamp it nice and tight to everything, and start tacking it in. We're going to do that. We're going to tack in the trailing arm brackets, and then we'll go ahead and go over how to locate those and where those sit. So next thing we're going to be doing is putting on the trailing arm brackets. The second gen trucks have a rivet here that we kind of indicate off of. This is a third gen and it does not. So what we're going to reference off is this hole here. As you can see, from that hole to the line I've drawn is 1 5/16". Just put my level on there and scribe a line like that. From here, we're going to get the trailing arm bracket. Slide it into place. Put it up even with our line. And tack it in. This thing might be a little bit warped from welding, so I like to make sure it's up nice and tight. And make sure to squeeze the corners tight with a clamp before I tack them. That way everything's sitting flat, and then this thing's good to weld. So we got our trailing brackets in, our frame plates on. These 2 slots are for putting in our shock towers. Those just key right into place. We're going to tack those in as well. These 2 front holes are for your panhard bar when you're doing a 2-inch wheelbase stretch. These 2 rear holes are for when you're doing a 5-inch wheelbase stretch. So your panhard bar bracket goes right here. Then on the inside of the frame, right over here, I'll show you how to locate that in a minute. But that's our frame plate where our cross tube from that side of the frame to this side of the bracket is going to go. So we're going to go ahead and get those couple pieces put in and go from there. Just like that, our shock towers are in. Panhard bar brackets in. Like we mentioned earlier, these 2 front slots are for the 2-inch wheelbase stretch, the 2 rear for the 5. We also added in our cross tube to brace our panhard bar bracket. Those put a lot of stress on the frame, so we think it's important that that's tied into the rest of the chassis. You can see here where that plate goes. We about line that plate up with the edge of this cross member, and I highly suggest welding the inside here, the bottom and the top before putting that tube in. Otherwise, it's a pain in the ass to get that in. This can be welded later. This kind of just falls wherever it wants to sit, and that goes down as low on the bracket as it'll go with all the tube touching and no gaps. So all we got left on the frame is our upper link bracket. There's a couple differences between the 2nd and 3rd gen. We're going to go over on that. And then we can start stripping the axle to get the axle side brackets on. Standing under the truck, I'm under the back side of this cross member here. This is the front cross member that holds the fuel tank in. Our upper link bracket's going to butt into the face of this, and we're going to set the height up and down the frame with this gusset that goes in at the end. The 2nd gens do not have this brace in the frame. The 3rd gens do. So we're going to cut this out. The reason we cut this out is we need to be able to get our welder under the link bracket so we can weld the whole bottom side of it, and this is in the way. It's going to be replaced with this, so you'll be left with the basic same end result, except you'll be able to fully weld your part. So I'm going to cut this out, show you guys how to index this, get this all aligned. We're going to get this in, and we're rocking, or something. I don't know. All right, so now we got that piece cut out. We're going to take our frame brace and just tack it in. I tack it in once in this corner, once in this corner, and this front face is going to butt into that cross member. That's going to set your height for your upper link bracket. So from here, I like to tack it in a couple spots. Now that thing's set in place, so I'm going to take this gusset out, just cut those two tacks, pull it out. That's going to allow me to do a weld on the top, the side, the bottom, the front, and I also weld it to the face of the cross member right here. Once that's all done, everything's fully welded, this can go back in. It welds corner to corner on this outside frame piece, and then you're going to weld everything together to tie it all in, and that's the last of the frame brackets done. All right, so we got the axle all set up now. We got the leaf spring brackets taken off of this one and the shock mounts. We're going to leave everything else so we can bolt all the lines back onto it. Our spacing for our lower link brackets is 50 inches on center. So what I do is I measured from backing plate to backing plate, got the width on that, took the difference to get my 50 inches and set it here. So our pinion angle is at 0. Our axle is level from side to side. And these are measured at 0 degrees right at the bottom of the bracket. So I'm going to make a little video showing you guys exactly what's going on. Kitty's going to ask for attention. We're going to keep on rocking. Start with our axle level side to side at 0. We're going to come over here, make sure our pinion angle is 0. 0.1 degree off. That'll be just fine. And the way we measure these lower link brackets is 0 degrees from the bottom. Not from this surface, but from here. So as you can see, that's at 0. We got the center of our bracket in line with the center of our center line. We are good to bolt in lower links. So we've got our trailing arms in. We have the vehicle set to what full bump will be. You're more than welcome to build this with your shocks in place. We just don't have them out of the box right now. So we set the distance from the center of this pickup point to the center of this to 21.5 inches. We got our pinion set to 0 degrees. 0 degrees equal with the truck. So if you're working on an uneven surface, you need to level the bottom of your frame and then level the pinion. So we got full bump. We've got our pinion at 0 degrees. Next thing we're going to do is put our upper link in. So we're going to bolt the upper link in to the chassis side. And we're going to figure out where it lands on top of the axle. We're going to set from the outside of the bracket to the inside of the frame 1.25 inches, so we have all the clearance that we need. And with everything at 0 degrees and full bump, we're just going to tack that upper link bracket in. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in, then we'll do a quick little review. All right, so as you can see, we got our frame side bracket bolted in. Came over here, we went ahead and put the bolt through the upper bracket. Set this distance to about 1.25 inches. If you go over a little bit, there's nothing wrong with that, and just went ahead and tacked it where it landed. The most important part here is making sure that your pinion angle is at 0 degrees. Once that's at 0 degrees and all your links are built to the lengths that we send you, you're good to just tack this with that clearance set, and that's done. So depending on your desired ride height, you're going to have anywhere from 4.5 to 6 inches of shock shaft showing. So we're going to go ahead and figure out what we need for our ride height. We're going to be somewhere around 5 inches of shock shaft showing. I'm going to set the measurement accordingly, and then from here we're going to set up our track bar. The last step here is going to be getting the panhard bar in. So we set our eye-to-eye measurement per the instruction length. We went ahead and bolted it to both brackets. We got our axle at ride height, centered side to side. Now we're going to go ahead and set this thing up. We're going to try our best to level the face of where the bolt goes through, even with the face of the pinion angle. That way everything on the axle is nice and even with each other. So we're going to get this tacked in, and then I'll show you what it all looks like. So when you're done, We have something around 0. About as close as we can get over here. So we're at 0.2. Yeah, it's very close. So we're going to let that slide and send it. And that's all done.